All right, everybody, welcome to week 2 of this class. I hope you're all excited to learn about development, right? And learn about lifespan and learn about how you may have grown up thinking and believing and developing physically and developing cognitively and how that may have affected you. All right, so this week we are going to talk about prenatal development and physical development in infancy and toddlerhood. All right. But first, I just want to cover some things in this class. One, please make sure to read the syllabus. It has the course requirements and expectations of you in this class. There's also a schedule in the syllabus that details each week what chapters we'll be covering and when we have exams and when, let's say, the paper is due in this class. Okay, it gives a breakdown week by week of what's going on. All right. Also, please make sure that you are going to the Canvas homepage to look at what is going on for the week, what videos were posted, what assignments, what discussions, or what exams are due that week, right? What material is being posted for that week and what modules. So make sure you're looking at the homepage. It's going to have important details and it changes week by week. If you're using the Canvas app, at the very top it'll say home. When you click on this course, it'll say home. Click on that link and it will take you to the home page. All right? Do not just rely on the to-do list that is provided through the Canvas app. You have to actually look at the material that is being covered for the week, please. All right? And again, the syllabus. Read the syllabus. If you have questions in the course, refer to the syllabus. If the question is not answered in the syllabus, then please reach out to me and I will answer that for you, okay? I want to make sure that it is as clear as possible what your requirements and expectations are of you in this class. All right, with that being said, let's dive into prenatal development, all right? It starts with conception, right? And so conception is when the ovum, which is the ovum, which is the female sex cell or the egg, and the sperm, which is the male sex cell, all right, when they have a union, the sperm fertilizes the ovum, all right, and therefore we have conception, all right. That creates what is called a zygote, all right, and then we have this tiny little zygote, and it has a couple cells inside of it, and those cells start to divide and multiply, all right, and this all begins right outside of the female's ovaries, all right. That's where conception occurs. And so the zygote, the cells in the zygote divide and multiply as they start to move through the fallopian tubes. By the 4th day, we have created, or what has been created, is the blastocyst. Right? And the blastocyst is a protective barrier for the cells inside the zygote. Okay? And then the cells continue to divide and multiply as they move through the fallopian tubes. Once they exit the fallopian tubes, they then the blastocyst will then implant itself into the uterine lining. And at that point, the cells continue to divide and multiply, and now we have an embryo, okay? But real quick, with the zygote period, with implantation, we develop blood cells, so we develop a yolk sac in the blastocyst, all right? We develop placenta, and we develop the umbilical cord. Okay, it's very important for you to understand that there are two things that are vitally important to our growth and development, and it is blood and it is oxygen. The umbilical cord provides blood, the placenta provides oxygen as well as food and removes all of the waste. Okay, but those two things are vitally important. If this zygote loses blood, unfortunately, it can die. And if it loses oxygen, it can die. Or it may have difficulties later, some type of, potential developmental issues because of the lack of oxygen and because of the lack of blood. Okay? Now, the zygote period lasts until implantation. After implantation, we now have the embryo period. We have a little embryo, and if you look at some of the pictures of a little embryo that I have, you see these tiny little extremities, and you see that the face is, coming forward, and they have little nose and little eyes and these little buds, and it's really, really fascinating and cute to like look at this. Although some people may say it looks like a little alien, right? Because it doesn't have all of the features that we have once we are born. But it is from implantation until the 8th week of pregnancy. It is during this period that we develop these 3 layers. So we have the ectoderm, the mesoderm, and the endoderm. The ectoderm is responsible for the nervous system. It's responsible for, later on, the development of the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, that's the nervous system and all the neurons that are running through our body. The mesoderm is responsible for the development of muscles in the skeletal system, and the circulatory system, the skeleton system, right? The endoderm is responsible for the digestion, lungs, and the other glands that will be developed, okay? The heart starts to develop during the embryo period, right? So we have a liver and a spleen that start to develop that then take over for the blood cells, right? And so now the blood cells are being pushed all throughout the body, and again, we need that blood and oxygen to get those extremities to grow, to get that brain to grow, to get all of the things to grow that we have when we are born, right? Good. Now, after the embryo period, that 8th week, we move into the fetus period. And the fetus period is from the 9th week until birth, right? So from 9th week to birth. In the fetus period, we arrive at the end of the first trimester. So this is the end of the first trimester, is 14 weeks. Right? Also during the first trimester is when one's sex glands develop. Okay, so that's when the sex of the child can be identified, is when the sex glands develop, which is during the first trimester. Then we move in after the 14th week, or we move into the second trimester, which is roughly the 14th week until roughly 26 weeks. It is during this period that we have more like brain growth happening. And if you look at the PowerPoint, you'll see a picture of first trimester brain growth, or brain and nervous system, or brain and spinal cord. Second trimester brain and spinal cord, and then third trimester brain and spinal cord. And you can see that there is rapid brain growth happening in the second trimester, which is very important. Okay, because during this period it is setting up the body, the nervous system, the skeleton system, circulatory system, the organs, the heart, all that stuff. And then during the second and third trimester, it's a lot of brain growth. Other things are still happening, but we are developing a lot of brain, okay? In fact, our brain is bigger than what our skull can actually hold, which is why the brain folds in upon itself while it is developing, and that's where we get wrinkles from, right? Pretty fascinating. Okay, then the third trimester, guess what? More brain growth. So the brain's getting bigger and bigger as we're getting ready to, as that mother is getting ready to give birth to that child, right? So also what happens during the third trimester is what's called the age of viability. And the age of viability is roughly like 22 to 26 weeks of the pregnancy. And this is when a fetus can be born and survive on its own. It may need some help for lungs, because that's one of the last organs to fully develop before birth. And so it may need some help with breathing, but it can survive on its own, right? And that's the age of viability, okay? Now, during all of this, we have these sensitive periods, right? And we have critical periods. Sensitive periods are when the development can be affected by something, such as the mother smoking or the mother drinking. So something may not grow correctly. And critical periods are that if something is happening during that critical period, then it may develop, may not develop, or may have some serious complications, okay? Because it is critical that, let's say, the heart develops or the lungs develop at a certain time, but due to environmental influences on the mother, that critical period of the lung development may be stunted, and there may be issues with that lung development, all right? So what we actually refer to environmental influencers, we refer to a lot of them as teratogens or teratogens, okay? So teratogens are some type of substance that is inhaled or ingested by the mother that affects the development of the child. And it is dependent upon how much the mother takes in. It is also dependent upon the age of the mother when she is pregnant. It is dependent upon the genetic coding of the mother, right? And how that affects the child, right? So let's say like alcohol, okay? So a mother who ingests alcohol at high doses can potentially lead to issues such as what's called alcohol fetal syndrome. And if you look at the PowerPoint, you will see a picture of an individual with alcohol fetal syndrome. They tend to have a smaller head. They tend to have some cosmetic features with their face. They also tend to be short, all right? And if you think about it, small head also means small brain, okay? And unfortunately, that creates learning difficulties as well, all right? So there are issues of premature birth, birth weight, respiratory issues, circulatory issues with the child, brain growth problems, cosmetic or appearance problems due to things like alcohol, marijuana, over-the-counter drugs, prescription drugs, radiation, caffeine, mercury. All right, there's a lot of things, pollution. All right, so there are a lot of teratogens that can affect the development of the child because it comes through the mother. Remember, everything the mother eats, everything the mother ingests, everything the mother breathes ends up with the child as well, okay? That ends up with that fetus. And this also goes for other factors such as emotional stressors, right? So whatever the mother is feeling also affects the child as well, all right? There's some research that talks about how mothers who experience post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, create a vulnerability with their child when they are pregnant for them to potentially also develop PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. So very interesting, very, very interesting. All right, so let's move into the physical development of infancy and toddlerhood, because at this point, we now have birth, and we now